Born of nuclear radiation and destined to walk the earth forever, welcome to Godzilla Reviewthon! What's up, YouTubers of the world? Make a Geek Mixer here with the 31st installment to the Godzilla franchise, Shin Godzilla, or as it's also known as Godzilla Resurgence. I think that was called that when they brought it over here to US to be shown in some theaters, but maybe not. But hey, let's just be glad they didn't decide to go with all sorts of multiple titles when they made this film like they did with other Godzilla movies in the past. But definitely this Godzilla film takes a whole new direction with what they do with Godzilla. Things that were shown to us in the past Godzilla films, but were the major focus in this film. And I'll be explaining them to them as I'm talking about the film. And speaking of which, let's just go ahead and get right into it. The plot of the film: Japanese governments find out that find a boat in the ocean, and to their surprise, there's no one in there. And then next thing you know, they're hearing about all these seismic activities that are going on around. At first, they're thinking they're just natural causes, and they're finding out the politically best way to not panic people and figure out how to deal with this crisis, so it doesn't cause too much of a commotion and bad rep for them in how they're handling this situation. But it doesn't take long for them to see that it's actually a monster. And actually, before that, one of the main characters, Yaguchi, I hope I said that name right. I no doubt probably butchered it, and I apologize for that. But he's the one who first thinks that it's not just a seismic activity, that it's a natural disaster. Something's causing it. Of course, other people in the government don't believe him at first, but it don't take long for them to realize that he's right when the tail of Godzilla first comes out of there. And then this is where it leads into something that really confused me. It would surface up into the world, as the Japanese government are thinking it won't be able to surface in the world, up into the surface. And while that monster was going around destroying things and everything, they only go into a press conference saying it's not here, when it had already landed long before they did that press conference, and they're just learning about it right when one of the governments do that press conference. I'm like saying to myself, how could they not have known about that giant monster attacking already? Were they like distracted by other stuff? Could the word not get out? Obviously not, but yikes, come on, that was still a crazy way to stop that. But then this is where it leads into what I was talking about before, how we've seen this before in past Godzilla films, but not to the extent that they went in as this film went on, as Godzilla's Rampage would start and as it would stop. It was amazing, beyond beautiful, and that is in the fact that this Godzilla here, with how they deal with the situation of Godzilla, was through all these politician decisions on what was the best way to go about it. Debating on, should they capture this monster? Should they destroy this monster? And even more so was the heavy weight going on as a prime minister is trying to think of the best solution possible on what to do, because one thing he was doing was prioritizing the safety of his citizens, of his country, to a level beyond everything before, because they didn't have the army go out there and attack Godzilla until it was known that people were out of the way. There was even a scene where they were going to attack, but they found straggled civilians nearby that they decided not to attack. Yeah, the politicians this time go beyond the level of what we saw in before with the Godzilla films. In Shin Godzilla, they really show it off in an enormous way possible to really show you guys how much pressure it can be being in the job of politicians, and the great tough decisions that have to be made in that hour. Because for that main character, Yaguchi, he was going through some difficult times with the fact that he had some of these things, but some of these people wouldn't listen. And then when they would finally listen and he got this team together, they're all still trying to figure out a way on how they can defeat Godzilla, because Godzilla, when he would surface again. But yeah, one thing I forgot to mention is after his first rampage, he would go back out to sea, but then he came back to Tokyo and just started rampaging around until eventually, after his rampage, he would stop, and that would give the Japanese time to figure out a strategy on what to do. And they needed to figure out quickly, because not only did Japan but the UN got involved in figuring out what they should do to defeat Godzilla, and some of them came into the aspects of the fact that they should throw a nuclear warhead down on him while he's frozen up like that. And while they did understand why they're doing it, they still didn't want that to happen, knowing of what the results could do to their citizens and the consequences of what it could do to their country. This is where it led into this team of people who were studying on how to best absolutely find a way to beat Godzilla. And in the also terms, showing us the politics on these guys trying to get the UN to let Japan figure out a way, because they are confident they can find a way in defeating Godzilla. And man, they showed it to beyond extent levels unseen when it came to politicians. When I'm not going to even lie, the sea levels of this politician was the deepest I have ever seen with politics. Because I admit, I know that politics are something that's crazy and disturbing and hard to come by. That's why I just try to stay in the lighter spot of it. But you get into this deep spot of it, man, are you in for it? How are you going to be able to get through this? You got to be really strong to be able to get through this. And by the way, I will say in the human plot of things, while we did have many characters, the one that really stand out was the one I mentioned earlier, Yagishi, along with a woman who's from the US, but her grandmother is from Japan, named Kayoko. And basically, well, let me just say with those two, they're standouts because really, they're the only ones who could really click to me as showing some great chemistry as they're interacting and everything. It can really show, while everyone else kind of was in that stale moment and that very serious moment and political moment, which I understand and everything, but still, to the level of things that was shown with these two main characters, Yagashi and Kayoko, it's way better than what it was with the others. But still, that was the politicians and things that going through with trying to defeat Godzilla was definitely something to see. But then when it came all down to first Godzilla himself, and the fact that him, as I've already said, his appearance is insanely crazy. I mean, those short arms with them big muscular legs, but the real stuff came for his abilities. Now, the atomic ray starts off with that big explosive fire to that straight concentrated beam. Now, that's something different for Godzilla. But I think the real surprise came with these two different abilities he has. His dorsal fins glowing up and shooting out all these lasers to shoot down all those aircrafts. That was something in and of itself. But also a new beam coming from its tail, being able to hit from anywhere from his back while he's concentrating on his front with his mouth. Oh, that is something. Fighting in two different directions was insane. But how they all defeated him in the end really showed that if Japan really puts their mind to it and work together to find the way to beat him, they can be able to help the United Nations know in a politic way that, yes, give these guys a chance to give it through, and they'll find a way to do it. Because, yes, in the end, they did, when Godzilla was defeated, it really gave an opening field for them to knowing what the level of politicians was. But definitely, guys, great film, unbelievable. It was showing the depths of politicians beyond the level I have never seen before. Makes me see why I try to only stay in the lighter side of those politicians, like voting and everything like that, because I don't know if I could handle that. But still, also with the fact that the film kept some of the old music with some of these other new musics to go with it, was pure genius. This was a great film and a great way to reintroduce some people to Godzilla besides the past previous films. But then that's all, guys. That is it. I have finally finished my movie marathon review of Godzilla, and I want to thank everybody who was able to stay with me from beginning to end to all of this. I can't thank you guys enough for journeying me on this journey as we made our way into Godzilla King of the Monsters, which comes out within a week, and I'm excited to see it. I hope you guys are too. But that is all, guys. Thank you for staying with me all the way to the end of it, and I hope you've enjoyed my movie marathon review of Godzilla Reviewthon. Until then, I'll see you guys in some more videos that I make as we make our way into the premiere of Godzilla King of the Monsters. And until then, Mega Geek Mixer signing out. Bye!